Well, hi everyone. I've got another update on the I-80 sinkhole saga going on in New Jersey. I did a video shortly after the first sinkhole developed near exit 34 in Wharton, New Jersey on I-80. It was a day after Christmas when this sinkhole opened up, nearly 100 foot long in its longest dimension. And New Jersey DOT officials promptly backfilled it and reopened the road to traffic 4 days later. And when I did my video, I indicated, I think this is a giant red flag and that they should embark on an extensive geotechnical and geophysical investigation program to find out if other areas are about to open up. Now, I don't want to repeat content from previous videos about what the background is for these mines and why this is happening. So check out the other videos I've done. I've got a link in the description. So here's the disclaimer here, because I've had previous instances where I state things that local officials aren't comfortable with because either they don't appreciate the technical aspects of what's going on, or they simply want to control the narrative for their own political reasons. And I've had instances where people make false claims that I'm practicing engineering without a license and so on. So just to be clear, the content of this video is for educational and entertainment purposes, although the situation isn't entertaining whatsoever. So I'm just going to play a short video segment for the first video that I did that frames what's been going on. So let's look at this image here. You can see the opening from the sinkhole, and it's, again, very close proximity to this apartment complex, and it looks like a above ground parking garage. So very settlement sensitive structure. And I would be really concerned about the development of additional sinkholes or enlargement of existing sinkholes. Okay, so I said that over 2 months ago, and it's only been recently reported. I'm recording this video on Thursday, March 6th. Local reports about issues with this building or concerns about this building were posted yesterday on March 5th. So clearly something could have been done earlier to get a handle on the situation, and apparently wasn't. So as a reminder, we're talking about this interchange area along I-80. So far, all the sinkhole development has been in the eastbound lanes, although I'll show you data that indicates potential concerns with both directions of the highway here. So this is the area where the sinkhole developed, and we can see we're in really close proximity to this apartment. The original sinkhole was about 300 feet away, and the additional sinkholes that developed in early February are about 160 feet away from this apartment building. So here's a short video segment showing that workers were kind of standing on a localized depression that was about 4 to 5 inches deep. And I pointed out in my February video that they shouldn't be standing there. And these areas subsequently opened up and collapsed. And New Jersey DOT has undertaken an extensive investigation and remediation program since early February with the development of these additional sinkholes. Now let's go back to what's going on with the apartment.
This crack was here. This was the one that the mayor was notified about, and they came in and just did a quick spackle job on it.
Anthony Colonna showing us what he and fellow residents at the Avalon apartments in Wharton are worried about, then taking us into his unit.
These are cracks that just started forming in the washroom.
Colonna's building sits along Interstate 80, where transportation department officials say crews are working on a deep void under the eastbound lanes of the highway after repairing 2 sinkholes near the same area.
They are doing a lot of construction over there with jackhammers and drills that are going underground hundreds of feet from this building. And my concern is the vibrations from all of that construction could be affecting the structure of this building.
But they say that is not their only concern. Transportation officials say the collapse of an abandoned mine shaft caused the sinkholes.
There's new cracks showing up every day, and you can't just call all of this a coincidence.
There's a lot of cracks, the wall separating from the bottom of the floor. I haven't slept. I'm looking for anxiety groups.
We're reaching out to the Avalon corporate company and no one's giving us answers. So it makes us very anxiety stricken every single night. We don't know if we're going to go to bed and not wake up.
Well, I find these apartment residents to be very articulate and very aware of what's going on. I don't think their concerns should be dismissed whatsoever. So this video segment came from CBS News story from March 5th. I've got a link to this full video in the description here.
We tried to get comment at the Avalon Apartments office.
We're trying to get comment on the concerns of the residents here.
Okay.
I can take your information and
Okay.
have our team get back to you.
The residents were concerned about this building here.
Are they safe?
Yes, they are.
Wharton's mayor says he's been in touch with the apartment building.
A lot of times we all have cracks and stuff in our house also when settling. So the building is over 10 years old.
Okay, well, the mayor, I don't know who he is, reportedly of Wharton, seems utterly dismissive here. To say that every building has a crack, nothing to see here, move along, is not exactly scientific or founded on a technical basis as far as I can tell. So what needs to happen in situations like this is a comprehensive program, and I'll go through typically what would be done in these situations to ensure monitoring and protection of particularly occupied structures adjacent to an area undergoing construction or having geologic or geoengineering difficulties. So as I mentioned, I did a video update back in early February when these additional sinkholes started to develop. And since that time, New Jersey DOT has undertaken an extensive investigation and repair program. Reportedly, they're not only backfilling these holes, but they're injecting grout under pressure to fill any openings or voids in the subsurface. Now, New Jersey DOT had this press release yesterday indicating between exit 34 and the bridge over Route 15 in Wharton, Morris County, New Jersey, this work's taking place 24 hours a day and is helping to stabilize the roadway and provide a better understanding of subsurface conditions necessary to design a repair. The department is continuing to explore all available options to restore mobility impacted by the emergency construction. It says they're in communication with FHWA. As the drilling and grouting work continues, we are stabilizing I-80 eastbound and narrowing of that area that will require a more lengthy repair. Once we have a better understanding of the subsurface conditions, we can finalize the design for a repair. In the meantime, we are exploring all options to improve traffic through the area while construction is ongoing. So again, I pointed out in late December that I thought they should have embarked on an extensive investigation program. And based on reports from local media sources, nothing was really done in that regard until the additional sinkholes developed approximately 70 feet away from the initial sinkhole. So why is that? Why did they think they could just backfill it and walk away? Obviously, they got a much bigger problem. This section of I-80 has been closed for weeks already and likely to be closed for additional number of weeks. So they provide a little more detail. They've stabilized part of the subsiding areas. It says, as of this morning, March 5th, 82 locations, or about 61%, have been drilled, and 57 locations, or more than 42%, have been filled with grout. These areas are not all voids, but locations requiring investigation. The number of locations that require further investigation may be adjusted as work progresses. So they go on to say, this proactive drilling and grouting helps identify and address potential problem areas before they develop into voids, and so on. Well, they should have been doing that after the first warning of the initial sinkhole in late December. So as I mentioned, and again, in a previous video, I'm not going to repeat everything, but this area has an extensive network of shafts associated with underground mines to produce iron ore. And these mines date back to the 18th and 19th centuries. So their locations aren't that well known. And one thing I haven't heard addressed so far is why the sudden activation of the sinkhole development. That is, if these mine shafts were backfilled and then the I-80 highway embankment, reportedly that I-80 through New Jersey was constructed from 1958 to 1973. So any given highway embankment section that's part of the original highway has been in place for at least 50 years. So why now are these sinkholes starting to form? What's changed with underground conditions, whether it's water flow in the subsurface or other activity? I think that's a very important question to answer, and so far I haven't heard it addressed. Now I'm going to play this next segment. This is from my update video in February. I think New Jersey really needs to get a handle on the extent of these old abandoned mines that could impact infrastructure and buildings and other important structures throughout this region. Now, one of the things I mentioned in the previous video is that satellite-based radar, or InSAR, can be used to delineate areas of potential concern relative to subsidence and sinkhole development. And again, I want to thank Value Space. They came through and looked at this section of highway along I-80, and they identified some concerning trends. So I'm going to go through that here. What they did was they took a view about a 3-year period from 2022 to December 2024. So this is right up until the time the initial sinkhole developed. And so the question was, if somebody had been using this satellite data, could they have discerned where additional sinkholes may develop? And Value Space points out that these movements were extremely subtle, so that you might not have determined the onset of the initial sinkhole, but certainly once you knew a sinkhole had developed in that area, they could come in, and they have, to look at if adjacent areas were also showing signs of subsidence and potential for sinkhole formation. And they identified several areas which, as it turned out, this is what started opening up in early February 2025, very near to where the initial sinkhole developed. And of course, New Jersey DOT has had to perform a significant number of borings throughout this area, and using InSAR like this could have helped them identify target zones a little more quickly, in my opinion. So again, you could just see how close this area is to the Avalon apartment complex. Now let's get back to the residents of the apartment building. As I said, I received an email this morning from someone who says they're a resident here, and they provided photos and videos of what's going on here inside the building in terms of what they're concerned about. See cracks in the concrete floor slabs below the carpet, fine cracking in the walls of the garage, apparent offset between the bottom of wallboard and the flooring, gaps forming around door jambs, and these cracks that emanate from a corner or near the corner of a door frame are indicative of settlement. And I don't know exactly when these cracks may have formed. It could be that there were some pre-existing cracks that people just noticed, but I certainly believe the residents there when they say that they think that several of these cracks are newly formed. And even if you have pre-existing cracks, you would want to document whether those cracks had widened or extended in their length during this recent activity of sinkhole formation. So at this point, according to the apartment residents, no professional engineers have been brought in to address the situation with this apartment. And I think it's the responsibility of not only New Jersey DOT to explain, are there impacts from their construction activity or their grouting perhaps that is affecting the building or the foundation soils below this apartment? So the residents have had to apparently take things into their own hands. And I just did a video where I outlined the steps for pre-construction surveys and vibration monitoring for a bridge that's being demolished in Rhode Island. There are nearby homeowners to that bridge demolition that have concerns very much like those here of the folks in New Jersey at this Avalon apartment. So I'll put a link in the description to this video because it gives you a comprehensive overview of the steps that are done to do construction surveys or to document the change in condition of a building relative to concerns about vibration or other geotechnical hazards, as well as what steps you employ for actual vibration monitoring. But just to give you a quick overview, you start out with a pre-construction survey. Now, these surveys are done by vibration engineers or really geotechnical engineers that are experienced in vibration monitoring. And so the idea is you document the location and extent of any existing cracks on visible surfaces. So it's a cosmetic survey. And then if you have existing cracks, it's prudent to install what are called crack monitors. These are these plastic gauges that are epoxied to either side of the surface, and the gauge can slide, and you can look at the change in readings over time if there's movement or widening of the crack or even closure of the crack over time. This is an enclosure for a vibration monitor. You use a solar panel if it's deployed outside to recharge the battery. You have an antenna for a modem so you can get an alert if pre-established vibration limits have been exceeded. And that's an important component to doing an assessment for buildings near activities that you're concerned with. And that is, what are safe vibration limits? And the goal would be to document daily what the vibration levels are. And typically you would issue a report weekly summarizing those results. So this is what one of these seismographs looks like. And here's the business end of it, the accelerometer. It has spikes so you can push it into the soil. If you're on a flat concrete surface, for example, you take the spikes off and you put a sandbag on top of the accelerometer, and it measures acceleration in 3 principal directions. You get a vibration plot that looks something like this. So as I mentioned, this work is going to go on for many, many more weeks. Apparently, all the work so far has been focused on the roadway for the highway so far. Again, I think it's appropriate for the owners of this apartment building, as well as New Jersey officials with the DOT or city government there, to fully address the concerns of these residents and actually employ a qualified engineer to do a condition survey, to set up vibration monitors, to be in communication with New Jersey DOT, to make sure that whatever they're doing to repair the roadway doesn't impact their building in an adverse manner. And then, of course, if there are broader concerns about the condition of the building that suggest a perhaps structural problem, then obviously a structural engineer needs to be brought in to consult with what's going on, to do inspections, to ensure the safety of the building for the resident. So I'll continue to follow this story. I think it's a concerning situation. I think the residents of this apartment building are sincere and credible. And so far, I don't think they've been adequately listened to whatsoever. With that, I'd like to send a shout out to those of you who've contributed to buy me a coffee. If you're so inclined, there's a link in the description. The contributions to buy me a coffee really help support the production and research associated with doing these videos. I also want to send a shout out to those of you who are channel members. I have a lot of extra interaction with channel members. They get to preview my standard videos 1 or 2 or more days in advance. And certainly I want to send a shout out to those of you who have provided super thanks. That's another excellent way to support the channel. So again, I want to thank Value Space for providing me this analysis to support these videos. I think it's extremely interesting. So please stay tuned for future videos. I'll continue to do updates on this situation in New Jersey. Thanks very much, everyone.